Rob and Slim Show.
Hey, man, Steve from the New Trick Podcast.
Steve, how you doing, dude?
Good, man. What's going on?
Oh, just doing our show.
Ooh, we gotta hit the. Well, we'll get the intern to do it when he comes out of the.
I don't trust that guy. He can't even make it on time.
He can't even. These interns suck. We keep having problems with interns, Steve.
Do you have interns, Steve?
Oh, dude, trust me, I understand interns.
Yeah.
He's taking a fucking
Hey, I mean,
shit break.
you get what you pay for, and you ain't paying him shit.
No,
so.
we don't pay him shit.
It's 4 hours shit break. He's all right.
Oh man, Steve, you are a radio veteran, are you not?
Yeah, 13 years did sports talk radio.
Is that good or bad?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's good. I always wanted to be in radio. I was one of those guys that grew up in L.A., and I grew up around all these great morning shows. Rick Dees in the morning, Jay Thomas on Power 107, with Mark and Brian. There was Howard Stern came up in L.A., so I was just fascinated with the idea of being in radio. So, yeah, I guess it was a good thing because I did something I always wanted to do. But it's a nasty business.
Yeah, right?
I mean, a nasty business. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart, I can tell you that damn much.
No, I did it for a few years. I interned and got an on-air shift. And, dude, like, anytime I had an on-air shift with my buddy Derek, and anytime we tried talking about anything that wasn't rock and roll, the hotline lit up. I'm sure you're familiar with the hotline. It's like
oh, Jesus.
a fire alarm light on the wall that lights up when the higher-ups call, and it's never good. It's never good when the hotline lights up.
How many times in one day?
I couldn't mention a movie or nothing. If I strayed off of the Razorbacks for even a second, my ass was grass.
Wow. Holy shit, man. I think we only got it like once a show, but it would be like nobody gives a shit because we'd be busting an intern's balls or something. But it was okay for like the DJs that were there forever to do it to us or have us on and talk to us. But the minute we did it, nobody cares about the intern. Talk about the rock. Like, talk about the music.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, radio's, it's definitely a man's game, that's for damn sure. I mean, boys can't do that job. It's funny because, people call you or people hit you up on Twitter and they always make fun of you for the way you do your show, and they always think that they can do better than you can. And then they actually get behind the mic and realize, wow, this job is a lot harder than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It sounds simple. Oh, I just talk shit into a microphone. No, fuck no. There's a lot more entailed to that job.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We had another thing that came to mind too. I did the morning show on that station with the guy that does. I think he still does it. And I threw out a dice line once, and he instantly went to break and started screaming at me. That's Andrew Dice Clay. He does that on Opie and Anthony. I don't want those fans, busting my balls. They're ravenous. I don't. I was like, all right, sorry.
He's just a pussy.
Sorry, Carl.
Jesus.
Yeah, dude, went right to break and just instantly yelled at me for just saying a dice line.
Yeah, corporate radio. What were you? Cumulus, Clear Channel?
Greater Media.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know. They're pretty big out here. I don't know if they're all over the country, but yeah, Greater Media was the company that owned us.
Yeah. They sound just barely under vaguely familiar, but a lot of the corporate radio, because I work for Cumulus, and what's funny is I worked on both sides. I did sports talk radio, but I would actually do voiceover for the rock station because what they did is there were two different markets where I live. The market where I actually currently live, and then what they did is they bought stations in a market that was about 45, 50 miles south of where we live. So what they would do is they had me do sports talk up here, and then they'd have me voice track weekends for the rock station that was down there. And I was like, okay, well, is there any way to alter these playlists? Because you've got all this bullshit all clumped together. You need to break some of this stuff up. And, I'm used, when I started off, I came from more of an independent station where you have a PD who did all the playlists every night. Yeah. And therefore, there was a lot more flexibility. And so I'm used to being able to go to the PD and be like, okay, what can we do to alter this? Because there's too much shit jammed up. Yeah. Of course, I'm also used to a PD, who knows what the fuck they're doing. So I'm not used to having bad playlists. And then they explained to me, it's like, yeah, this is Cumulus. All this stuff is piped up the line from Atlanta. We don't choose anything. Atlanta tells every Cumulus station what to play.
You can't request a song.
Same thing at the exact same time across the country.
Exactly. Yup. And like I'll do it sometimes even in the car. I'll switch stations and like sister stations, and it's the same exact song in the same exact spot. Like it's just all you can't change it. You can't deviate from it.
That's crazy.
It's disgusting. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest reason. Everybody wants to blame technology and iPods and, the way the music has gone with live streaming and internet. People want to blame that for the demise of what is now a broken down industry in rock radio. No, you can blame rock radio for its own hubris because they believe that they can pump 3 songs and 6 commercials down your throat every half hour, and you're going to keep listening when you've got continuous music anywhere else except for this little terrestrial dial.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day,
dude,
these radio stations, you're going to start seeing like the 105s and the 94 ones and all. You're going to start seeing all these dead signals because these stations are going to be shut down. They're not going to be able to afford to keep their doors open, so the FCC is going to have this problem of all these dead airwaves.
Dude, what about Pandora? You could just thumbs down a song if you don't like it, and it'll bring you a next song. Like, that shit is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know so many people that are addicted to Pandora because, you just put in one band. You just put in Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
And you'll get one Pearl Jam song, 5 bands from that genre, another Pearl Jam song, another 6 bands from that genre. It's actually really cool how Pandora has it set up. iHeartRadio, even though I think iHeart is kind of on shaky ground because all it is regular radio on an internet dial instead of a terrestrial dial.
Yeah.
To me, it serves the same purpose, but Pandora is a beautiful idea.
Yeah.
It really is for people who basically what you're doing is you're getting music in kind of a radio format, but you're cutting out the middleman of having to go through all the shitty commercials. Nobody wants to hear that crap.
There's an ad every now and then, but it's really not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, believe me when I tell you, the commercials are so far and few between because, it's so much different now. And like I said, you look at what Clear Channel's doing. Clear Channel is shifting almost all their attention away because they're so multimedia faceted. They can divert their attention to other areas. They don't have to worry about most of their business folding. You're never going to hear the end of Clear Channel. They're going to evolve in other areas. Cumulus. Cumulus has let their own ego completely screw, though. I mean, they got bent over the table, done raw, and they did it to themselves. And to be honest with you, I work for them. I know they're a bunch of rat bastards. I'm getting a big, fat, cheesy smile on my face because of it.
Oh man! Now the show you do now, Steve, the New Trick Podcast, you just do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, that's the beauty part of it. Basically, I'm doing what nobody else would ever allow me to do. I'm doing the show that I want. I don't have some suit breathing down my neck. I don't have some freaking jackass telling me, it's like, no, can't do that. You cannot deviate from this topic. No, I talk about whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
And, I was told, by a few friends, and, who really don't understand how these kinds of formats work. And even I'm, still trying to work myself into how podcasting is because I'm used to more traditional radio formats. But, they try to, tell me it's like, you can't have a show. You have to have a specific type of, niche, when you're going, you need to either talk just about movies or just about video games or whatever. It's like, that's not true. You have a lot of shows that are very, free flowing and talk about kind of whatever they want. And, those are the kind of shows you go all throughout, podcasting. Those are the kind of shows that are good. Joe Rogan's really good.
Yeah.
Adam Carolla is great when it comes to shit like that. He's one of my favorite podcasts. So that's kind of, where I model that. It's like, these guys are unrestricted. They can go serious topic, non-serious topic, and everything in between. And as far as I'm concerned, I went my entire life with people telling me what to do. This is my fuck you moment. This is me doing whatever I want. I'm in control of my own content. The beautiful part about the 21st century is I owe nobody an explanation. I control everything. I put it out. The only thing that sucks, the only thing that I have to get my brain used to is when you're in radio, you're used to a certain number of people listening to you. You being in radio, you understand the term team number. You understand what it means, an average number of people listening to you every 10 minutes. You have to get past the fact that those numbers don't exist anymore, and you have to build up an audience from basically
nothing.
scratch level.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing for a radio guy to swallow.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you have a following from radio that followed you.
Somewhat, yes, but really not a whole hell of a lot, because people around here really do have blinders on, especially in Arkansas. They care about two things: Walmart and the Razorbacks. And I covered none of those things. Yeah, I didn't carry a lot of those people over. Now, some, yes, I did. People who just got to know me through basically the radio business. I got to know a lot of people in the radio business. They have followed me and they listen to the podcast.
That's cool.
But as far as listeners, no, I don't have any part of that. But that's the biggest thing that I'm getting used to, is having to just build that audience from scratch. But yet the fact that I can control all my own stuff and I don't owe anybody an explanation, that's the beauty. And I'm just, like I said, I'm going to take this and do whatever the fuck I want, because again, no suits.
That's what I was going to ask too. Like, are those people just set in their ways? They're only listening to that station. They probably still have total faith in regular radio, and they won't try or even consider like listening to a podcast.
Well, listen, there are always going to be a couple of stations around the country, and a lot of those stations will actually develop with technology. Take a station like K-Rock, 106.7 in Los Angeles. Because of what they mean to the city, I think K-Rock will always be around. You'll get 103.3 in Dallas. There are specific stations. There may only be maybe a dozen stations like that in the entire country that mean so much to that city that they won't go away because they're a tradition.
Yeah, they're a staple.
MMR for Philly.
K-Rock in New York as well, but I think they're like a pop station now. They used to be a rock station. They're still, I don't know if they're still called K-Rock, but now it's like a top 20 station.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, if you're flipping formats, you're probably not going to last. But I'm talking about like with K-Rock in LA, they have the exact same format the entire time they have been on the air. They have not flipped for anything, and they've maintained consistency, and they really have moved on. They're also found on the internet. Their live streaming is incredible, and they've really moved to where they've moved with where the people are. They have their own online app, and so they do really, really well. But again, they are such they're such a tradition, they're such a landmark in the city of Los Angeles that I think those kinds of stations might stick around. They may be the last ones out the door when radio completely falls and dies, and there is no more life. The pulse is gone, the heartbeat is stopped beating. But
I thought it was going to be there already.
Rock radio is all but dead.
Yeah, I thought it was going to already be there, man. And really, when you come down to it, music, there's no rock anymore. There's no hip hop. It's just all that top 20 garbage, man.
Justin
Well,
Bieber
because it's the only kind of music that's being put out right now. I talk a lot about on this podcast that we do about where music is, and I interviewed a guy a few weeks ago. He's a songwriter in Nashville, and he writes songs for any kind of band you possibly think of, from Daughtry to Theory of a Dead Man to all these different country artists. I mean, 140-something artists I think I saw on his roster. And I was talking to him kind of about the direction of music. And the problem is because of how the millennials kind of have intake music, it makes it really, really hard for bands like the style that we love. Like, I'm watching you right now wearing a Nirvana shirt. I'm wearing the exact same shirt right now. Okay?
Nice.
I mean, the exact same one, which is hilarious and almost kind of weird. Same way. Bands like that aren't being discovered because you have this mass-produced, almost assembly line kind of music that is popular because that's the only kind of music these kids are taking. They don't have time for anything else. Nobody's going to wait for another album. There will never be a Pink Floyd The Wall, so nobody's going to sit there the entire fucking day.
No artists last anymore because of that.
There's not one song you can pick out of it. So
well, it's weird. It's weird because, like, a lot of the older stuff now, it has staying power.
That's the only shit that has staying power. None of the new shit does.
Now everyone forgets about it.
Yeah, like, you hear a song from, like, 3 years ago, and you're like, oh, that's an old song, where you don't consider a Nirvana or a Floyd or even, like, Beastie Boys, all those bands, you don't consider them old Smashing Pumpkins. Like, they have staying power. They could be great now. They could have been great anytime they came out. But these new bands, like, you hear them, and even like a few years later, they don't hold up. They don't fucking. They're just garbage.
Well, listen. You look at all these artists, Nicki Minaj, or who's that chick dating Swaggy P? I mean, she's not even important. I don't even remember her name. You know, all these little tweeny bopper, little hip hop artists, if you even really want to call that. You know, Wiz Khalifa. You know, you get all these artists, and the only reason I know them is because my 12-year-old daughter knows who they are. That, you know, they're filtered commercials on the Disney Channel, for Christ's sake. And the problem with these artists is, they have no staying power. They're not going to be remembered for anything, but because they splash their ass across Twitter, and they're always doing something to reset their 15-minute of fame clock.
Yes, that's how I feel about Bieber. Bieber is so like that, man. That's all he's looking for is another 15 minutes.
Yeah, and that's all it is. You know, Kanye West is a great example of a guy. Listen, everybody wants to call him a genius. He's a genius for keeping his ass on television with very minimal talent.
His songs are good. He's got good songs, I feel, but that's all he's doing is just making another jackass move after jackass move to stay relevant.
But he knows that it's getting him to stay relevant.
He's already fizzling out.
He is. He absolutely
You're hearing less and less about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. Stuff just doesn't stay around long enough anymore, and that's the reason music is just dying off, because, I'm sorry, a good album, it takes time. It's like, you know, making anything good in the kitchen. You just can't throw it in the oven. You can't throw it in a pot, throw it in the oven, and, you know, expect it to come out tasting worth of shit. You got to take your time with it, and they just don't have time for anything. So you can throw in the studio, you can throw a little cheesy voice over, you know, recorded drums and recorded bass and all these different crazy little sounds, and in 20 minutes, you've got a song you can throw across the radio. Oh, hey, by the way, either release a sex tape, you know, release pictures of your tits, or, you know, get caught doing something that's going to put you on Twitter and get you trending.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Music has become what television is. It's one big reality show episode.
Yes, exactly. And that's the problem. It's a fast food culture. That's you know, that's it. Microwave, not oven. Like
that's what I was going to say too. Where
everybody's
lazy because it's in every art now. It's like we were talking about earlier. I was talking about clowns and how clowns now are just some dude in a vest with a heart on his face.
But you said back in the day their face was
like back in the day, like the clowns who actually cared, like they would have like a face, and if another clown took that face, they would get the fucking shit eaten out of them. Like you couldn't do that. Like it was an actual art that they cared about. Now it's just some dude in a vest who can make a sword out of a balloon, and you know, and same thing with like magicians. Like I'm a hobby magician, and I listen to like other magicians, and the magicians nowadays are just these kids who watch a YouTube video or something, or see like Chris Angel, and they go out and go, oh, look what I can do, and nobody actually puts the effort. He's a dude. But in any art, it seems like nobody is putting the effort into it to actually learn something and to actually become good at something. It's just, let me throw this together real quick.
I think art, like just like painting and sculpture, that
was
was the first thing to fall. Like that fell in the 60s.
Now it's just like smudges of paint instead of like, you know,
somebody jerks off on a canvas and they think it's a fucking like masterpiece worthy of the fucking Sistine Chapel.
Yeah. Steve, I wanted to ask you, from working in radio, do you have a lot of connections? Like, do you have a lot of guests that come because they knew you from back then?
Actually, you know, it's actually funny you asked that. You know, I've been actually reaching into that bag lately. Over 13 years, I've talked to so many different people and formed so many different relationships, you know, and from all different walks of life. You know, it's funny, you know, the first year I was in radio, and I actually got kind of starstruck the first year I was in because, you know, I'm a big Dodger fan, and the first year I got to interview Tommy Lasorda, and I was so scared shitless that I kept fumbling over questions. So it took me about a good 5 minutes to calm down, and then I had a great interview with him where I wish I could have gotten that first 5 minutes back. And, you know, I was talking anywhere from, Emmanuel Stewart, who is trained anywhere from Vitaly Klitschko to all different kinds of boxers, Lennox Lewis, Michael Buffer, who's let's get ready to rumble, you know, that guy. You know, and that was all in the first year. So I started developing relationships then. And then my second stint in radio, there was a year in between two radio jobs. And then that's when I started getting into some hard-hitting people where I was developing relationships with people at the NFL Network, developing relationships with people at the SEC front office, you know, for the Southeastern Conference. And, I mean, I've got people all over the place. I mean, because I've interviewed, you know, pro athletes, first round draft picks, high end, blue chip recruits. I mean, you name it. I mean, God, Michael Irvin, Dallas Cowboys. I've interviewed him. He was a great interview. Funny as all hell. Trying to remember some other guys because I mean, really, there are a lot of them.
That's a laundry list.
What's that?
That's a laundry list.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
It's a laundry list. It's a long list. Of...
Yeah. I mean, it's a big laundry list. I mean, Hall of Fame coaches. Nolan Richardson, who won the national championship in 1994. He was kind of a local guy. A lot of guys that kind of run through. But I mean, Charles Davis. Again, guys that are on the NFL Network. I talk to those guys all the time. Used to have those guys, on the show all the time.
Wow.
What's funny? Patrick Willis, interviewed him. From the San Francisco 49ers. A month later, he retires from the NFL, and that was in Silicon Valley doing, like crazy tech work. I was like, did I really make the guy retire? I mean, because like literally a month later, the dude was out of the league for no reason whatsoever. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that, I was actually blessed where I was able to develop these kind of relationships. And believe me when I tell you, I'm going to be dipping into my bag of tricks as I go forward, especially the more I develop a following. I'm probably not going to break out some of the big guys until I get a lot more people under my belt. Like one guy, I used to have him on the show every single week during football season because he was actually part of our fantasy football league. Our on-air fantasy football league was Gilby Clark from Guns N' Roses.
Wow.
And, he'd come on and, he'd come on for one segment and we'd go through all of our lineup picks. And then he'd come on the following week and we'd talk about how bad we whipped each other's ass. And that was actually pretty cool.
Wow, that's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, so believe me, but I want to build up a little bit bigger of a following before I start whipping out a lot of the big guns. But like on the show so far, I've already had a guy from NBC Sports, a good friend of mine, Kurt Heelan. I've got a good friend of mine who is an actor. He's played in roles alongside John Travolta. He's currently on the show Supernatural, which is a big CW hit. His name's Travis Wade. Friend of mine from high school. Had him on the show. Had a couple of different guys who were reporters, and of course had podcast guys on. So yeah, definitely have had those guys. And believe me, as the show gets bigger, so will the guests. I can promise you that.
That's outstanding. That's really cool, dude. It's been great to talk to you. We have to wrap this up, Steve. But where can everybody find you?
Follow us on Twitter at New Trick Podcast. You can get all of our interviews on indiemediacompany.com. Of course, we're on iTunes. You can also find us on Stitcher. As far as how many people actually go to Stitcher, I think we got like 1 or 2 clicks over there. I don't really
get any.
Stitcher all that
I
much,
get the stats every week, and it's always like 1 or 2, like you said. Yeah, Stitcher, I don't know about. Like,
yeah, I'm just not as familiar with that one. It's like it was promoted in a directory, so I was like, okay, I guess I'm on Stitcher now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but like I said, we're on iTunes again at New Trick Podcast. Definitely follow us, and you'll like the show. I think we're okay. We're an okay show.
Yeah, I've checked it out. It is a good show, man.
Well, I appreciate that, guys, and of course, I enjoyed being on with you guys. And like I said, Rob, nice shirt, dude. It's nice that we dress alike, and it's like I said, kind of weird. But the 2 radio guys are actually dressed in Nirvana shirts.
That's hot.
Huh? That's just weird to me.
Just if you've been in the radio business,
that's it.
You've been in the radio business, you have a Nirvana shirt, and that specific Nirvana shirt.
That's clutch, yeah.
Which I wanted to bring up.
Slim has a salmon.
Time, but
as long as you don't have a salmon
polo, that's what I was wearing. I got the salmon polo. These guys are wearing band T-shirts. I'm just out of place.
Yeah, I don't even rock a single polo. So yeah, no.
Same here.
No.
I'm ultra white. I mean,
he is. He's been branded ultra white from our last guest, so it's all coming together now. Oh man, thank you so much, Steve. It's been great talking to you, man.
All right, guys. Hey, you take care, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, brother.
Take care, Steve.
See ya.
Later, dude. Awesome.